I am sore. Okay, we tend to run over on these presentations, so let's go ahead and get started right away. This group has usually I just go in order of the numbers, but this group has an appointment coming up soon, so I'll have them jump in first. If you have any appointments that are later in this hour, you can go ahead and jump in after her.
So Hunter, you can take off like a little. When do you leave?
I gotta be out here by like 8:45.
Okay.
Okay, how about your group goes second then? Would that work for you? Okay, awesome. All right, good luck. Have fun.
Alright, so today we're excited to be here and to talk a little bit. We're going to be talking about the Information Systems Department application process, which I'm sure you are all excited to hear a little bit more about. We'll get into that in just a minute. So first of all, we'd like to introduce our team. We have Team Sasky. We have Steven Scobie and myself, Ashley Lewis, Sam Cox, and Kyle James, and Yuri Hariyama. And like I said, today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Information Systems Department application process into this program, into the Bachelor's of Information Systems. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the Information Systems program. And the Information Systems program was created in 2005. Previously it was part of the Accountancy and Information Systems Department. I don't know how many of you knew that. They were part of the accountancy program before that, School of Accountancy. And here in the Marriott School of Business, we have all limited enrollment programs. And the Information Systems program typically enrolls 120 students each year. This year, though, you can give yourself props. We actually increased that number to 144. So everyone give themselves a hand. The best and the brightest are here. Right. So here we have our organizational chart of the Information Systems Department. On the right side are our faculty with our department chair, Dr. Barney Anderson, at the top. And then on the left side we have our staff and administrative positions, which do a myriad of different things. All right.
So, as we interviewed Caroline Thorne and figured out some of the current processes for the application processing, we realized that there was a lot of manual processes. She or a student would go out and to different websites and pull down information manually, copying and pasting it into a Excel spreadsheet. Once that Excel spreadsheet was done, she would transfer it to another Excel spreadsheet. So it was really kind of a manual process. And so we decided we wanted to automate this process. And we knew that automating this process would do three different things. It would reduce the time spent, and that would increase her employee satisfaction, because honestly it's a really frustrating process that takes a long time. And then finally, it's going to reduce the risk of human error. Manually copying, like pulling up two different Excel spreadsheets and copying stuff from one spreadsheet to the other, that leaves a lot of room for mistakes. But she is super careful, which took more time to be so careful. So ultimately, it's going to reduce risk and time spent and employee satisfaction. Increases employee satisfaction. So the economic feasibility is low risk. Paying student employees to develop the solutions that we've decided on is not going to cost very much. It shouldn't take them very long if they're familiar with Visual Basic for applications and web scraping and Python. So ultimately, we did some calculations, and our return on investment should be 100% after one cycle through the admissions process. The organizational feasibility is a medium risk. We like our process, we like our system, and we really hope to design it in a way that Caroline will like. But ultimately, we know that she has been doing things a certain way for a long time. And so there is some risk that if she gets frustrated or can't figure out how to work with the system, that she'll revert back to the old way of doing things. And finally, the technical feasibility is low risk. There are students available who understand web scraping and VBA enough to be able to do this fairly simple system. And if they do have any questions, because they're working for the IS department, they would have resources available to them to reach out for help.
So this is the activity diagram and data flow diagram of the current system. So simply, the students submit application, and then IS department process and add data on the application, and then that goes to the committee to make a decision.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the current process. And as you all know, we start by each one of you submitting an application. And for your, on your end, that can be a tedious process for you, right? Filling out, writing essays, submitting that. But before that, obviously, taking all of your prereq courses and making sure that you've gotten good grades and meeting all of the qualifications to be qualified to apply to the program. The next step is we have a student employee who works very closely with our academic advisor, Caroline Thorne, to take all of the information that's collected in those applications, comes into our database here in the Marriott School. Fortunately, she doesn't have to go through each one of those manually, but it is collected electronically. But then she verifies a lot of different information that's collected, not only from the Marriott School database, but from other databases across campus, like MyMap, and then also a database called Record Summary, or what we refer to as RecSum. And all that information is collected and put into a spreadsheet. I know we are very antiquated. Excel is our friend. And put into one really big spreadsheet. A lot of that information is collected for data analytics purposes. We do collect a lot of data on each of our students, but that information is used for your benefit in seeing how you could potentially perform in the tour, and so on. Once that information is collected, we do our very best to do some quality control. Our student double checks and triple checks their work. And then that spreadsheet then is sent to Caroline. She takes the necessary information that she needs from that sheet and copies that information to a different sheet that she needs to go ahead and use for the admissions meeting. Now, we have a committee of faculty members that are determined earlier on in the year from the department chair. And they meet, and then they decide, based on a lot of different criteria, who will be admitted into the program. And then that information is then submitted to the undergraduate office, and then they let everyone know who has been admitted into the program.
The problem of the current system is first, it's time consuming. So the student employee, she collects data from MyMaps and other database to the spreadsheet. She starts this process in April when the application opens, and then she ends in the end of June or the other way, July. So it takes a month. So if it's time consuming, it means it's high cost. It costs a lot. The second problem is human error. So especially we are copy and pasting and also like sorting the spreadsheet, there's always a risk of human error. So those are the two problems of the current system.
So the new system is going to take most of the difficult things and the time-consuming things that the employees are currently doing and that Caroline's currently doing, and just automate them, because most of them would be pretty easy to automate. First, we're going to design a Python Selenium program, which is pretty simple browser automation technology that you can code in Python. And then we'll use VBA and macros to do data sorting and duplication and randomization in the data. So the employee will make duplicates of the data for safety. They'll sort some of it. They'll put in the algorithm that's used to calculate your overall prerequisite GPA. And then they'll run the VBA program that'll do the rest of the difficult stuff that's sorting the data alphabetically and through algorithms and putting them in different spreadsheets.
So in the current system, we really considered Caroline as part of the system because all the work is manual. But in this new system, we would consider the admission system to be all the internal automation. And Caroline would be external entity, the admissions employee. And the two inputs from her this time are going to be the specification form, which I'll get to in a second, and then the admissions committee list, which is really just a list of the faculty members that are going to review the applications. And then the outputs of the system are two different lists, one ordered by rank of students, and then the second one is just a employee distributed list where each faculty member has a certain amount of student applications to review. And so I won't go into too much detail on the level 0 diagram. A lot of these new processes we included are things Sam already talked about. So here's an example of the specification form we were thinking about. This is an easy way for Caroline to decide which classes or which groups of GPA has a certain weight in ranking the students. And then also at the bottom here you can see Caroline can specify certain fields for certain colors. So for example, like if a student's an international student, she could label them as green. And this is something that's already done manually, but if she decides beforehand, she'll just submit, the program will automatically run the VBA scripts for them.
So in conclusion, the implementation in the new system, it should take about 1.5 weeks for 2 students that are experienced in Python and VBA to write out everything that they need to do. So first they'll write the web scraper, and once they get that figured out, then they'll write the forms for the admission employee and the VBA scripts. So it should be a pretty simple and inexpensive process. The end. Anyone have time to look at that? Yes.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us.
So today we're doing our presentation on virtual experience. I'm Brady,
I'm Nathan.
Bryce. And I'm Nathan.
and virtual experience is a virtual reality arcade on Center Street in Provo, and it's owned by Hunter. He's actually here with us today. Thanks, Hunter, for being with us. But yeah, a couple months ago we were able to talk with Hunter about improvements that he wanted to see in the management of the company in regards to data and there we go. In regards to data and just overall management of that data, as well as customer interaction and overall management of the business. So we're going to show that to you today.
So just a little background on the business. So like we said, Hunter is the owner. Virtual Experience is just a virtual reality arcade on Center Street in Provo. It's a relatively new business, was founded in 2016, and Hunter purchased it earlier this year. It boasts the cheapest VR in Utah, so you should all definitely come down and try it. Shameless plug. Also, so this is the team. It's just, like I said, it's a relatively small company. Hunter owns it, and he has 5 employees at any given time. This is a picture of the team right here, and as you can see, each of us are, well, each employee manages the store on a daily basis, just helping people come in and play VR, but we're all also, each of us is also over different portions of the business. Josh and Leanne are over equipment management, testing, customer experience, advertising, and this ugly guy is in charge of database and CRM design. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the problem that Hunter wanted us to solve. He came to us, and well, we came to him, I should say, and he told us that he wants a way to track which customers are coming back to the store. And so we decided to analyze the current system and figure out why he wasn't able to do that, and then come up with a new solution to allow him to do so.
So currently, the VE uses 3 different programs or software platforms to kind of manage all their data. They're using a software called Acuity Scheduling that connects to their database, connects to their website, and allows customers to go online and schedule an appointment and pay a deposit, so that then they have their time reserved before they come into the store. They use Square to process all their payments, and it keeps track of all their revenues and holds all the customer personal information, so they don't have to worry about storing that. And they also use a Google Sheet to store all the data store all the data from a waiver that the customers have to fill out before they're able to play VR. So the problem with all of this is that the data is spread across 3 different platforms that don't really like to talk to each other. So trying to run any analytics on it, or trying to really use the data to their advantage is pretty difficult. So this is our context level diagram, of their current system. As you can see, there's a lot of data going back and forth between the VE system and the customer. However, there's not a lot of interaction with the manager. So the manager's not really able to see or use a lot of that data. And he's not really able to contact the customer to offer rewards. And that's going to be a big part of our new system that we'll show later. Here's our level 0 diagram. And as you can see, we have the 3 different data stores laid out in there. And they all kind of come together in what we call an aggregation process. And really all that is just downloading the data into some Excel spreadsheets and then trying to gain some sense of what's happening from there. Essentially, that doesn't really work out that well. And that ends up as a business summary that goes to the manager, and then the manager can kind of use it, but there's really no good way for him to use that data to his advantage to help grow the business.
And I'll explain a little bit why with this one. So the way this works, so this is the activity diagram. It's kind of small, but I'll explain it. As an employee, I kind of go through this process every day. What happens is a customer comes into the store either having booked an appointment online beforehand, or sometimes they'll just come into the store hoping that there's available space. When the customer comes in, the employee greets them and checks to see if they have an appointment. If they do and there's space available, then he checks to see if they've paid already. If they've paid a deposit, but not the full amount, then it's up to the employee to determine the remaining amount of money that they're supposed to pay, which can be difficult for a number of reasons. The first being that VE offers tiered discounts for the number of stations that they rent. If they rent three stations in one appointment, then there's a 5% discount. 4 stations, there's 10% off. Now the thing is, Square, our POS system, doesn't really have a way of calculating accurately the deposits as well as the tiered discounts. So what ends up happening is the employee has to calculate it manually and then just put it in as a custom amount. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. After a person has either received a discount and paid the rest of their amounts, or if they've paid already the full amounts online, the employee checks to see if they've already been to VE previously. If they haven't, they just begin playing. If they have not, then they need to sign a discretionary waiver and then watch an instructional video to explain what the rules are, how to play the games, and to avoid them breaking any of the equipment. Now, as Nathan was saying, the main problems with our system, with VE system, is that it collects data in 3 different places, but those databases don't really communicate, and there's a lot of redundancies. We have information from customers who signed the waiver for the first time they come in, but we never collect information from them through the waiver ever again. We have payment information through Square, but also some through Acuity. But those 3 separate databases have little to no communication, and there's a lot of duplicate customer information, as well as, well, let me show you this right here. So, as I explained, when a customer pays the deposit online and then comes into the store, if there's an applied discount, then the employee needs to put in a custom amount to get them to pay the remaining amounts of their transaction. And as a result, most of those come in as custom amounts. As you can see, that is by far the biggest category of transaction at VE. And that doesn't really give Hunter much or any useful information. He's like, okay, so there's a lot of people coming in, but what kinds of experience are they buying? Are they getting in for an hour, for half an hour? Are they getting in groups? And so our new system is designed to remedy that. So basically what we want to do is solve the issues of having multiple databases by consolidating it into one database. And we also want to streamline the payment process by creating a CRM that will allow people to create an account that will already have all the discounts and everything hard-coded in. And also through this account, Hunter will be able to track customer information, see who's returning, how often they're coming. It'll be much more simple.
Right, so as we were analyzing kind of the data that VE receives, we noticed that the customers already give us all the information that they need through the waiver to create an account. So we get their email address, their name, their phone number, everything that we would need for an account except for maybe a password. And so for our new account, or our new system, really the only change is that we, instead of having them sign the waiver and lose that data, we have them sign the waiver through creating an account of sorts. So every time they come in, they sign in with their account to verify that they have signed the waiver, and then through that process, we're able to collect that data. This is an ERD kind of that same, or of that principle, the database that we would need for that new process.
So here is our new proposed context level diagram. As you can see, it's fairly similar to our original context level diagram. You'll see more of the differences with the level 0. But the main difference we want to emphasize here is that the manager is able to send back some loyalty rewards to the customers. Because with our new system, we'll be able to actually track who's coming back when. They'll be able to offer more rewards to help incentivize more customers to come back instead of just coming once and then never coming again. And in addition, our new system will combine all the information that was previously in 3 different databases into one, so that it's easier to produce the necessary information, to run analytics, to decide which customers are eligible for the loyalty rewards. And then the manager can send that information back to the customer.
Okay, so as far as the feasibility analysis, went through and determined how much it would cost to build this new system. We used market rates for developers at $70 an hour and designers at $40 an hour. We estimated the itemized things that we would need for the system, and it comes out to be about $27,000 to build this new system. As far as the feasibility for this, it is a small business, but we estimate that because of this new system, we'll be able to get between 10 and 20% customer growth through returning customers through the loyalty system that we'll set up. And between 10 and 20% customer growth would lead to between $13,000 and $26,000 a year in added revenue. So the payback period on this would be about a year to 2 years, depending on how well that performs. Additionally, some capital budgeting that we did on this, with the required rate of 10%, the NPV comes out to be between $20,000 and $70,000, and the IRR comes out to be between 40 and 90% roughly. So based on these numbers, the project should definitely be accepted, and it choice for this business.
And along with that, we just evaluated the technical and organizational feasibility of the project, and we determined that both are low risk. The technical feasibility is low risk because, like Bryce said, the project needs to be outsourced to a third-party company. And there are a lot of third-party companies that are able to do a project such as this. And then the organizational feasibility is also low risk just because we know that this system is going to be used every single day by the employees, the customers, and the manager. This is an opportunity for all three of those entities to be able to really see the data, use the data, and feel more comfortable in virtual experience. So here we have some mock-ups of our proposed system. We just have a simple landing page and an About Us screen, just kind of in the new style that we're going with. And then we have the login and edit profile page. So as you can see here, these are going to be the most important screens of the page, or of the new website, where the user can log in and access their new account, where they can see their bookings and also their earned discounts or that customer loyalty program. So that way, Hunter, the manager, can curate different loyalty discounts depending on how much they've played. And this is just a place for them to kind of come see what they're doing. And then here's our new scheduling page to book booths. So we have a new calendar layout as well as a new payment experience where we would get the data for each individual payment by customer.
So do you guys have any questions? Maybe first Hunter, do you have any questions?
I might have raised this concern before, but like the website, that's our primary sales person. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for people to go online and book appointments, right?
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, will that be an value added if they have to set up an account, or will that kind of shy people away from booking appointments?
So, as Bryce explained earlier, we're collecting most of the information that people need to make an account anyway when they sign their waiver. So by making signing the waiver a part of the account creation process and a part of booking appointments, like you can say, to book an appointment, you need to sign this, discretionary waiver. We just add a password, and then they just have an account. It's that simple. And so if you just make signing the waiver a part of scheduling appointments, then people are much more likely to be willing to create an account.
In addition, currently when they have to create an account, when they schedule an appointment, they have to leave a deposit. So you're gonna get people who are already pretty committed because they're already gonna have to leave a deposit. So they're already putting in their payment information. So there's already a level of trust there with the website. So we don't think it'll be too big of an issue for them to add a password just to kind of hold all that information for them. And it might even make it easier for them next time they wanna come. They'll just have to sign in and all their information already be there. They won't enter anything. That's kind of a rationale behind that.
And this may also need to be a trial basis. If it ends up not working the way we were hoping, there is the option to add a sign in as guest option. So if they don't really want to create an account, they can sign as a guest. Now, we won't be able to get all the data that we were hoping for, and so that data won't be able to use as much as we'd like. But if it does end up not working out, we can have a sign in as guest option and still grab those people that aren't necessarily committed enough to make a full account.
If you sign it as a guest, you have to do waivers, so isn't the only thing you're missing just the password?
Yeah.
And then they don't have access to new customer loyalty stuff. So if they're not, the goal would be to incentivize them to say, hey, you can sign as a guest, but if you create an account, then you have access to discounts over time and things that you wouldn't really get benefit from. So it'd be like a loyalty reward program.
I think the goal was to kind of trick them into creating an account by not calling it create an account up front, but rather just let them schedule, and then as they go through the scheduling process, they just fill out all the information that they need for their account, and then by the time they've scheduled their account, or by the time they've scheduled their appointment, they already have an account. So that was kind of what we were going for.
And would that be, if they created the account, would that, when they come into the store, would it be a different process of how they check in?
Yes, it's a good question. So when they come into the store, there will be two pages that they can log into. So one will be create an account page, and the other one will just be log in, where they can provide an email or a phone number and then their password. And then that already logs it in their accounts, and then you can see how many times they've come back and how much they spent. Like it'll all be streamlined and very simple.
Okay. I think I want to set up another meeting to dive a little bit deeper into this with you guys, because this is really interesting, and see if potentially it would align with spot on doing it now.
Sure.
How we met with them. So that was really cool. I think that was really good.
about this than me, and I'm just trying to be helpful, but perhaps not helpful, because I don't know. As they place the orders, like maybe, just like for a lot of things that I order, maybe a QR code could show up in your box, and then so when they come in, you just scan the QR code on your phone or something, like, and then they're checked in. And then, as far as the waivers currently, do they fill them out on paper?
No, so it's just we have a page on our website where they type in all the information and then submit it to this Google Sheet, and then they watch the instructional video on the same page.
Okay.
So when they come into the store, there are multiple laptop stations set up. So they go over to one of those laptop stations and sign the waiver once you're there too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
Which team do you want to go now?
In order of what they're on the sheet, unless, yeah, that works for me. I don't know. Who's next? My group number of order. Oh, no. Lower down is first, but it doesn't really matter. We can run first, you can have it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Who would build this at this point?
Who would build it?
Yeah.
So we're looking at a couple of, so there's a couple of different things. So currently Square, there's like a POS system that we use in Acuity and all that, but we're looking at a couple of other local ones. Like there's one called Spot On that we've been looking at that is like, it's a POS system, but it also does allow scheduling and loyalty rewards and stuff. So that one is already built, and it kind of aligns with a lot of the stuff that we've designed. So we're going to see if that one pans out and see if that's a viable financial investment. If not, then we can probably find some other CRM. There's plenty of simple CRMs built like this already.
Because there's a lot of development costs there, but now you're talking about acquisition.
Either way, like that money could be put into development or into paying for the new system that's already been built. So
I figured that it's probably a big chunk of money for him.
quite a bit, yeah.
That's why we message you like, how feasible does it need to be?
I guess, to be honest, you know how much it costs.
Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. I'm Peter Madsen.
I'm Michael Jenkins. Jake Saylor. Corbin King.
And we're working with the company Zant to help them solve their problems. So, who is Zant? Zant is a company that was formerly called InsideSales.com, but they just this month actually rebranded to Zant. They're trying to do a whole market change. They're trying to revamp a lot of things and really make a lot of changes to help move them into the future. And one of the things that this caused was them to realize a couple of places they needed improvement. Now, along with all of these changes, there were recently changes in the organization itself. So Chris Harrington is our new CEO at Zant. And as he took over, that's when he saw these holes and wanted to improve them. So these are the three people that really, in the C-suite, have a lot to do with what we're digging into. And that's because it deals with strategy and the customer-facing side of the company. So when we went to them, they gave us their business case and said this is their problem. So Zant has a thing they call the Professional Development Program, or PDP program for short, that is a program where they'll hire on new employees into this one team that works with basic
tech support for the company's products. This is a software company, so they have their own in-house customer tech support. Now, this team is trained, is supposed to learn everything about the product, as well as how to be really a professional in a software company, so that they can move on to any of the other positions within the company, especially focusing on positions customer facing, customer experience managers, technical consultants, many other positions in the customer experience department that this company has. Now, they came to us and they told us they had a couple of problems with this process. They had problems with data tracking and storage. They had problems with milestone progress reporting, which is telling the new employees how far along this new onboarding program to learn everything and be ready to move on in the company, tracking that progress, and then content management. So we're going to get into all of that.
So going through the feasibility analysis, operational / organization, it would be very, very low risk. This process that we've come up with will be used daily. Every new employee is enrolled into this PDP program, and they're in there for about a year where they have to complete all these milestones. And so it would be very low risk. They can update the curriculum, they'll be using it daily. The employees will be more versatile, so overall it'll be used quite frequently, and it'll be worth the investment. The technical, while it is a software company, Xant mostly focuses on like marketing and sales. This software is more of like a learning base, and so it's a little bit different in context, but it has very similarities because they already have very experienced programmers and software developers that maintain and function their own software base already. And so it can be built in-house, and so the technical is more of a medium just because it is a new software compared to what they're normally programming in, but it is very doable and they can make it into a very low risk as well. Financial, according to our estimates, we never actually got solid documentation from Xant, but according to our estimates, it is worth the investment. They should receive an ROI of 50%-ish, give or take. Considering that they don't really have a software base for their learning experience for the PDP program. And so it should be worth the investment for Xant.
So in analyzing their current system, we obviously made the graphs and charts and everything we need, but I don't want to get into too many details on this because that's not really what the presentation is for. But to put it simply, it was a very simple process, as you can see by the process diagram here on the left. It was something that, they get the requirements, they do them, they report them, and then they go back and update it on the spreadsheet. And it was kind of super simple, but as we all, I'm sure, can kind of figure out, that leaves a lot of room for error. There wasn't a lot of catches or control processes to help with that. Some of the good things we saw, though, that were coming out of the system that they had in place was the reporting to the HR and the finance department, because there were bonuses involved with completion of the PDP program. So that was a crucial step in the process in the data flows you can see here. However, because of the simplicity and the errors that were happening in the original process, sometimes that could be a risk. This just goes into a little bit more detail about the data flow here. And again, it's very simple, which kind of left some room for error. This is an example of the spreadsheet they were using to keep track of the information, and although the colors are very nice and everything, again, it's an Excel spreadsheet. I'm sure we can all kind of imagine what can happen with that being passed around, the updates not being updated correctly, and the employee keeping track of their stuff, and the manager having to do all this stuff on their computer. So after our analysis, we found there were a few strengths in the program. Like I said, it's very simple, it's very easy to access, and it displays the progress well. So we were looking to keep those things in our solution while addressing the weaknesses here, which were recording the progress, reporting the progress, and updating the modules in the actual system. So I won't go over all of these, but again, from some of these weaknesses, we noted the key issues were that the employees must request the requirements for each milestone from the manager. So sometimes one employee could ask for their milestone, and then the next day another employee could come, and it could be a tiny bit different or something like that. So our aim is to help make sure this is all standardized across the company and across the PDP program for each role. And then the entire process, again, relies too heavily on the current PDP manager. Filling out the Excel spreadsheet and everything leaves a lot of room for error. So we're going to automate all of that so they don't have to deal with that and minimize some of the risk there.
So yeah, as Corbin was kind of saying, a large part of the issue that we were facing was that a lot of the tracking and reporting relied on the manager, a single manager, to take all the tasks and modules and metrics from each PDP employee and put that into an Excel sheet. And if the PDP employee wanted to know their progress in the program, they had to ask the manager and kind of get that feedback, or they had to have maybe their own like personal notebook they were tracking it. So these are kind of the main issues we addressed with basically a web application we'd be creating that would just simply track their progress and it would display it to the user. So we would track the data automatically in the program as they completed these tasks and modules and inputted their metrics. And this program would also compile it into kind of a report, and it would allow the user to view the report, and it also would send a report to the manager so that he didn't have to worry about putting in the metrics and keeping track of all the data, and he could focus more on being kind of a mentor to the PDP employees. And one of the final issues that we faced that I think Pierre was kind of addressed earlier is content management. And so it would be hard to create a software application that automatically updated content to be up to date with changes in the company. So we decided to implement kind of like a PDP development team. Obviously not a team that is focused full-time on the PDP program, but a team that would meet maybe once a month and go over content in the PDP program and update any issues that there were. I'll explain a little more in detail here. As part of our web application, each of these milestones, each of these kind of checkpoints has tasks and modules, and within this software, there will be kind of a page that displays all the tasks that the user needs to complete and kind of the schedule on which the user needs to complete those tasks. And as they complete the tasks, they'll be prompted with surveys to kind of give feedback on the content and kind of determine if content seems outdated or incorrect. And then also the web app will automatically track questions that have maybe a low percentage of correct answers throughout the PDP program and that maybe are considered low quality questions. And this will be compiled into kind of a content report that is sent to that PDP team to review for content issues, and they'll update content kind of on a monthly basis. So here's just kind of some mock-ups of what our web app would look like. A user could just log in, and here are the milestones. It's not clear yet. Each milestone is kind of just like a checkpoint for the new PDP employees to reach, and there's 3 checkpoints by the end of the year, and they kind of include different tasks and modules and training, kind of training experience metrics. And so here you see, I guess this is more of like if they're having issues with the page, they can report it, and that can be sent to the content management team. And yes, we won't get too into detail, but it should be a relatively simple application that simply tracks the employee that is a PDP candidate and sends any of the information that is tracked to the manager. And so we hope to implement this within a 1-month period. We think that with the resources that Xant has, we could implement this in a one month period, and it would allow Xant to grow a lot faster. One of the issues is if Xant were to start growing at kind of like a hyper-growth speed, it would be difficult to scale on the current system they have, and so we think that implementing this within the next month would be really advantageous.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Oh, at least it works. Good morning, everyone. We're group 16, and we did our projects on birds and family eye care. My name is Eric Lewis, and we have Jeffrey over here, Kellen, and Natalie that are joining me as part of the team. We decided to do, the next one is, we decided to do our project, as mentioned, on Riverton Family Eye Care. Riverton Family Eye Care was founded in 1999, based in Riverton, Utah, and was bought out in 2005 to have two co-owners. Currently, they just recently moved to the new office back in 2015, which is this place. They are based around families. A lot of children come in, a lot of children's glasses and frames, and a lot of the work they tend to do is based in that. They, as we go through, we're going to be talking a lot about frames. Now, just a point of clarification, that frame, for those of you who don't know, I figure most of you do, that the frame is not the actual glasses, it's the object around it holding the lenses. We're going to be using that word, and that's the primary way that they tend to earn money, is by selling these frames and the glasses, as well as doing the eye exams. The current owner is Dr. Jody Johnson, co-owned by Tammy Johnson. Tadan is the office manager. Her and a couple of the opticians are the ones that we primarily work with. And we will, as we go through, we'll be explaining how exactly we help them with their system, with their inventory management system, and how we help them with their frames system.
Exactly. So as we talked with Jody and Tadan, mainly the optometrist and the office manager, they talked about how their eye exams and medical care was all going well, but they really struggle with some business processes like inventory management, vendor relations, and cash flows. And these all kind of go back to the inventory actually. They don't really have a way to track their inventory at all. It's really bad actually. And then that kind of correlates with vendor relations, because when vendors come in, Tadan has to talk with them to order the frames, but she doesn't know what frames have sold, what frames haven't sold, and so it all goes back to the vendor kind of pushing what he wants in their store and for them to buy. And then as far as cash flows go, when frames are discontinued or when they're broken, sometimes the office will be able to get money back at credit, but that credit doesn't come for multiple months down the road, and on top of them have to pay for the frames up front. And so with the company not knowing what frames are being sold and what frames aren't, that really causes a cash flow problem because they're carrying the cost that whole time. And so the scope of this project really came down to creating an inventory management system for them. But as we got into talking to them about their current processes and things, we found out that they acquired a third-party software just a couple months ago that they haven't fully implemented, that will kind of take care of most of their system requirements that they want. And so we came up with an economic risk of low. And here's kind of a breakdown of the economic feasibility. We still included the maintenance costs of the software was $69 a month. But over the 5 months,
that we did this for, we got a cumulative net present value of just under $1,300. And as far as technical risk, because they already have this program already pretty much implemented, it's a low technical risk. And with the organizational risk, Dan and Jody both really want to start keeping track of their inventory. And so it would be a low risk, but since they have the software and they haven't implemented it yet, we left it a medium to account for that. So now we will go over our current processes.
Okay, so this is a data flow of their current system. There's not actually a system right now to track the frames data, so the system right now is just their opticians and their office manager, so keep that in mind. As we were talking with them, we noticed 3 main processes that we wanted to focus on. So those are the ordering frames process, the selling frames, and the broken frames process. So we have activity diagrams of those 3 processes. Sorry, they're kind of small. The ordering frames process is just the process of vendors coming in, them ordering frames from them, receiving them in the store, and displaying them on their frames board. Selling frames is when a customer comes in, chooses frames, they pair frames, and they sell it to them. And then a broken frames process is when a customer brings in a pair of broken frames, and then the store or the office is responsible to return those frames to the vendor and reimburse the customer and give them a new pair of frames. So like we were talking about, they don't have a good inventory system right now. This is pretty much how they are tracking all their frames right now. So they'll receive a pair of frames from the vendor in this bag, and then they'll place a tag on the left-hand bar with the date it was received and the price, and that's the only way they're tracking inventory right now. So when they sell that pair of frames, they'll stick the tag in the corresponding folder with the vendor's name, and that is more for the vendor's sake, even more than like for the office. So this is how they're tracking their inventory right now. There's no system. So there are some clear issues with each of these processes because of that. So when they're ordering frames, the vendor will come in, and because they don't know which frames they sold super well, they don't track which frames they sold, they don't have good analytics or data, they don't know best which frames to reorder. Also with selling frames, they only receive one set of frames per model for the frames board when they bring frames in. So they'll sell a pair of frames, and then that pair of frames will be gone from the store until a vendor comes in again. So they need a better way to track that inventory as well and have the inventory to replace frames as they're sold. And then for broken frames also, there's not a way to track when a customer brings in a broken frames. Currently, when a customer brings in a pair of broken frames, they are storing the pieces in a little bucket in the bottom of the filing cabinet, and that's it. They don't put it in the system anywhere that the customer brought it in or how long they've had it for. They just know that it's in there, and so the vendor comes in the next time. And the vendors come in about once a quarter, so that provides lots of issues, especially with cash flows because they're holding those frames for such a long time.
And so, luckily, I guess Jeffrey talked about before, they already have a EHR, electronic health record system, called EuroUprise. And they recently acquired it, and they didn't realize that EuroUprise, as we did our system analysis, we realized actually meets all their new system requirements for tracking inventory and helping them do other things. So it's able to keep track of all their inventory. Here's a nice ERD of what that kind of looks like in a central database. It also allows them to run reports, which they can then download as CSVs and then use them in Excel or other data analytics software to find out what frames are selling the best and how they can improve their business. So here is a data flow of the new system. As you can see, there's a lot more data flowing here and here and here because it's actually being stored somewhere instead of just in a little folder. So that's nice. Also, since they already have the software in place, we've mainly focused on them changing their processes to more fully utilize the system features. So as you can see in the ordering frames process, probably the biggest difference is right here. The ordering frames process now starts with the office manager running reports before the sales rep arrives so that she can understand the best frames to buy and the best glasses to sell. This is the selling frames process. has really changed because we've eliminated a lot of the back and forth that used to happen. We've also added the ability for them to order a frame to be drop shipped to the lab, so that instead of the frame coming to Riverton Family Eye Care, them selling it on the frames board and then shipping it to the lab to have the lenses made for it, and now can have the lenses shipped directly to the lab, saving them from a whole mess of work and an additional shipping charge. The broken frames process really changes because we've added tracking to each set of broken frames that comes into Riverton Family Eye Care. So that way, when they get the credit memo from the vendor or the manufacturer, they can compare and see if they actually did receive all the credit for all the broken frames that they've given them. So here's a couple screenshots that show just the Your Uprise system in action. So this is where you click to add a pair of frames to a customer order and order them a set of glasses. Here's where they would receive inventory, and we suggest that they get a barcode reader so they can more easily track individual pairs of frames while they're in the glasses, while they're in the office. This is kind of how their inventory system will look. All of the glasses will appear under here when they add them to the system. Running an inventory report, warranty replacement frames. And so luckily, because Riverton Family Eye Care already owns the software Your Uprise, all they have to do is train their employees in the new processes and take inventory of their store. And so we estimate that will take probably about a month, with training being the longest part. But they should be able to easily implement this and be able to start seeing the benefits of the software they already own. Any questions? Yeah, they're related to me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're doing our presentation on the Firth High School registration system. I'm Parker Pixton. I'm Landon Williams. McKay Dowling.
I'm Matthew.
Just a super quick overview. We're going to kind of give some background information, go over the business case, the current new systems, and then our project.
So a little bit about Firth High School. It's located in the town of Firth, which is situated between Pocatello and Idaho Falls, Idaho. The town of Firth actually has a population around 480, but the Firth High School itself has a student population of 260, but that's because many of the students come from the surrounding area. At Firth High School, there are 15 teachers currently, and the graduation rate is, well, for last year was 94.5%, which is actually 15% higher than Idaho as a whole. Fun fact about Firth High School is all Firth School District has a vacation, 2-week vacation called Spud Harvest, and that's because many of the farmers need the help of not only the students but also the teachers in harvesting the potatoes. So to go to the next slide, here's a chart, the organization chart. If you look on the bottom, there are teachers and faculty for all of the 3 schools, and they answer to the management team, which consists of the principals for each school and a couple of different people, a couple of other people such as the superintendent. And then they answer to the school board or board of trustees, and they answer to the community at large.
Yeah, so there were a couple of problems that we noticed as we were analyzing the current registration system, but two of the main ones is that way too much time is spent trying to register these students for their classes, just because of the process that involves students actually filling out paper forms, which hopefully are correct, and then someone else that's on school administration has to input all of that data and their information and make sure they filled it out correctly. And if anything is wrong, then it takes up more time on registering just that student. And one other big problem that we noticed is that a lot of students aren't getting a fair chance at registering for classes they want, regardless of their grade level, because students are registered in alphabetical order. And so for someone with the last name X through Z, tough luck. So we decided that we would create a website that simplifies this registration process so that the student can fill out a form for when they register their classes, but online. And this form would at the same time validate all the information being put in, just to make sure that it's correct before it can be submitted.
So really quick, the feasibility of our solution, which we're going to be talking about